Thank you. There we go. Thank you, everybody, and welcome back to this afternoon's events. 2 o'clock now. We've got Paula from the Summit Road Society, please. Welcome.
Yeah. Kia ora koutou katoa. We appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today. I'm Paula Jameson, President of the Summit Road Society, and with me is Bill Martin, our General Manager. The Summit Road Society dates back to 1948, and it was formed following advocacy by John Jameson to restore his grandfather's legacy. This legacy was in reference to the work of Harry L., and refers to both his rest houses and his reserves, which had suffered badly during the war years. From about 1906, Harry had secured remnants of the remaining bush on the Port Hills and Banks Peninsula, secured these as reserves, and Kennedy's bush was the first of these, but during the war it had been grazed, and the signs of the bellbird, as well as the kiwi and the packhorse, had all been vandalised. So one of the first jobs of the fledgling Summit Road Society was to fence Kennedy's bush. Now, I should admit here that I'm a great-granddaughter of Harry L., and that John Jameson, the founder of the Summit Road Society, is my father. Now, during the 1960s, there was concern about development on the upper reaches of the Port Hills, and this saw the Summit Road Protection Act, which basically stated that there were no structures could be built or large trees planted within 30 vertical metres of the road. But this was always open to challenge, as seen by the Gondola project, and dare I say it, even more so under the current government. The Summit Road Society recognises that owning land is the best means of protection. So through legacies and donations, today the Society owns and manages 4 reserves on the Port Hills, covering over 500 hectares. These are Omahu Bush, Gibraltar Rock, Ohinatahi, and Linda Woods reserves. We operate 4 volunteer groups, and we also lead the backyard trapping project, Predator Free Port Hills. Last year, our volunteers on both these projects undertook 15,000 hours of work, and that included some work on council land. Now, a long-term vision includes restoring native vegetation to the gullies of the Port Hills. Now, among other benefits, native reforestation of the gullies will store carbon, create habitat for native species, reduce fire risk, and reduce sediment pollution into the Opawaho, Heathcote River, and Whakaropo, Littleton Harbour. These landscape-scale projects require leadership from the council and collaboration between the council, community groups, private landowners, and hapu. This makes the shared vision for the Port Hills and funding for its implementation essential, and we strongly support the development of a comprehensive Port Hills management plan. This is something the Society has been calling for many years. And we're very happy to see that work has started on the Port Hills plan. This should provide the shared vision we currently lack. We still anticipate being invited to engage with this and trust that funding will allow it to be developed into a full management plan. All our reserves are open to the public. As we've mentioned in our submission, we are developing new walking tracks. We're working with the council to develop a connecting mountain and bike track at the top of Linda Woods Reserve, and we're planning a new car park on the southern Summit Road that will provide ready connection with Omahu Bush, Gibraltar Rock, and the council-owned Otahuna Reserve. And it will link to the Crater Rim Walkway and provide access to Cooper's Knob. We've also held discussions with park rangers on opening Otahuna Reserve to the public and linking walking tracks between Omahu and Otahuna Reserves. We genuinely value the support and guidance that the Regional Parks team provides to our society. The Society volunteers have spent some 8,000 hours on our reserves up on the Port Hills, and that includes council reserve land. But this work by volunteers still requires funding and coordination. And we're very pleased to see an increase in funds allocated to the Environmental Partnership Fund. This fund is to support proactive partnership work between council and community groups to achieve environmentally focused activities and projects on publicly accessible land and waterways. We're also very pleased that just last week our efforts were recognised with the annual grant for our part-time general manager being increased from $39,000 to $60,000 for the 24-25 year. However, annual grants do not provide job security, and we ask that multi-year grants be awarded under the Environmental Partnership Fund. We've also been recipients of grants from Strengthening Communities. This provides cost-effective and essential support to community groups, including those involved in ecological restoration and pest control. Our Predator-Free Port Hills project is a recent recipient of such funding. We have some 2,000 households who have worked probably around about 7,000 hours last year protecting the peri-urban fringe of the Port Hills. This area provides the first line of defence for predator-free Banks Peninsula, and some multi-year funding here allows for forward planning. We're pleased that the Christchurch Biodiversity Fund is continuing. It offers support to private landowners to protect areas of significant ecological value. The Biodiversity Fund is one of the few funding options available for invasive weed control on land of high biodiversity value. Invasive weeds are one of the biggest threats to native biodiversity. These weeds don't attract the same level of attention or funding for control as predators do, but they are a dire and increasing threat. We desperately need coordinated, collaborative, funded, multi-year programs to contain and, where possible, eliminate weed species that pose a threat to our native biodiversity. With respect to fire, I'd like to comment that the Canterbury Climate Change Risk Assessment of 2022 specifically identifies the Port Hills as an area where fire weather will increase over the coming decades. Maybe not today. We're pleased to see that these special heat fire sensors have been established in several places on the Port Hills, but additional sensors are needed along the southern Summit Road. And this is, we think, specifically now where fire has twice crossed the Summit Road in the vicinity of Mount Ada and burnt down Ohinatahi Reserve. Sensors are also needed in areas of high risk, such as the John Jameson Lookout, and further south in the region of Omahu Bush, around there in Cooper's Knob. So I'd like to thank you for the opportunity of making this submission. We greatly value the support the Council provides us, both in person from the Regional Parks team and financially, as we work to protect, regenerate and restore Indigenous vegetation on our reserves for the public to enjoy. We are grateful for the portion of funding that is allocated operationally, as well as the opportunity to apply for specific projects. However, we request that the Council considers multi-year grants, which will provide stability and also provide the best outcomes for environmentally based work. Thank you.
Good on you. Thank you. Thank you, Paula. Any questions? Oh, Pauline, please.
Just on the fire sensors, we did have a few, didn't we, that we've just dotted around. Phil, have we got any more in the bottom drawer? Those fire sensors? Or
No, there was one in my bottom drawer, but I nicked it.
Yeah, or is this something that we would make a note of and take forward to the LTP?
Could do,
I
because
think we're hearing they're really important.
smart cities are always keen to put more of them out there.
Yep.
they said there were more in the pipeline, so that's a progression.
The smart cities, so
Yeah,
we've got a
the
note of
sensors,
it. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
so we're putting our hand up, and when the sensors were put in at the top of
Raupaki and
near Rapaki,
yep.
I have I've written to the people that invited me to write to say where we would like to see more.
Yeah.
And those are the ones I've mentioned here.
No, that's good to have
yeah.
that specificity from people
Yeah.
on the ground like you, and thank you for
Yeah.
everything
Paul
you're doing.
Devlin's involved in that as well.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Tyler?
Kia ora. Thank you
Kia ora.
so much for that. This one's actually for staff. There's a phenomenal traffic light system that they've put into the submission. I'm wondering how that gets layered into the views, or has it already been laid in? If I understood through you, Your Worship, so the submissions go out to officers who make comments, and then we also take a note of the questions here, and they get fed back. Oh, great! So it goes to the units, and then they just make. That's correct. Okay, yes, awesome. And then it'll come back in a report to you, and we also note the questions that have come up here, such as the one now on fire sensors. It's a phenomenal submission. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Tyrone, did you have a quick one? Sorry, Sled, for
I
running
did,
the time.
yeah. So just thank you, Paula and Bill. So just in terms of the Port Hills fires, pretty devastating. And you mentioned like the countless thousands and thousands of hours that volunteers put in, planting natives, and so how did the lands under the direct management of the society perform during those fires?
The 2017 fire took out 82 hectares of regenerating bush out of a total of 150 in Ohinatahi, and the fire last year came down the same ridge, one of the same ridges, and took out 20 hectares that was small regenerating under an unfortunate large amount of highly flammable weed species. So gorse and broom and blackberry have come back into those 82 hectares en masse.
And interestingly, it petered out when it hit more mature native bush that was further down in the valleys.
Yeah, that's probably more of what I was kind of thinking of.
Yeah.
Just about the value of those plantings and the work that's been done. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
Paul
you.
Devlin made that comment that the fire came through at night, so they had to leave it overnight, but he was pretty confident it wouldn't spread into the reserve once it got into that more mature bush, and it didn't.
Well, I will qualify that. It did go down that reserve, but on the sides, it didn't creep down further into the more damp, mature bush.
Thank you for your good questions that you've answered. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
Righto, Mark, sitting up the back there, bud.